Good afternoon and welcome to episode 9 of News that Breaking Vet. Today's topic is May the real war veterans please stand up. In 1992, our president set up a fund to help the people who had been injured while fighting for the country's liberation. Out of the total amount of $1.5 billion that was set aside for this, $450 million went missing. The man at the center of this corruption was a person who they nicknamed Hitler. What an apt name. This guy was the self-proclaimed leader of the war veterans in Zimbabwe. He was also a qualified doctor who obtained his qualification in Poland. Yes, the leader of the war veterans at the time hadn't even fired a single shot in the War of Liberation and instead had spent his time in Poland beating his white wife and children, while the real war veterans were actually fighting the war. His real power, however, came from being appointed the doctor who would verify the injuries of the war veterans. This was the man who you would have to go to so that he could check your injuries, and then based on his assessment, that would dictate what percentage disability you would be declared and correspondingly how much money you would be paid out. Hitler himself, although nowhere near the War of Liberation front, was paid out over $500,000. Among the other beneficiaries were many junta members and their families who never saw action except perhaps maybe in the cooking kitchens in foreign lands. Some examples are the nephew of the supreme leader was declared 95% disabled. The man could still walk, talk, work, but was nevertheless paid out. A former ZBC boss was declared 100% disabled, received $483,000, and yet still carried on working at the public broadcaster. A former CIO boss was declared 98% disabled, and he got $650,000 payout. A woman who was a junta MP declared 94% disabled and got $579,000 payout. However, the most interesting was a former deputy president who has since been expelled from ZANU and has gone on to form her own party. At the time, she was declared 55% disabled and got $389,000 payout. And yet, there are wide circulating videos of her ploughing her lands, playing hopscotch with her grandchildren, skipping over a rope, and fit enough to traverse the country meeting party members. 55% disabled, by the way. Yet there were genuine cases that were totally ignored. Mukoma Musa, a brave warrior, had to be buried by his very close friend, a brigadier in the army, who paid over $10,000 of his personal money to bury his friend. When he spoke out against this rampant corruption, he was forced into early retirement. Alexander Piri, president of the National Council for the Disabled, was crippled and confined to a wheelchair for life. He could not walk, could not run, could not plough his fields, could not play with his grandchildren. Yet he was only rated 20% disabled. Solo Shamu sustained massive injuries in battle that led him to be confined to a wheelchair again for life. He only received $359,000. There was ample proof of corruption on the part of this Hitler guy. And so the junta at the time were in two minds. Some wanted to prosecute him for that corruption, thereby bringing sanity to the situation. However, the vast majority were scared that if they were to prosecute him, they would all be exposed, as well as their families and other beneficiaries, as to how much they were awarded for what really amounted to false injuries. The junta paid up. In 1980, when the war was declared over, there were 32,000 war veterans. In 1997, 17 years later, they had miraculously multiplied, even though some had died, to 50,000 registered war veterans. They were all paid $50,000 each, a monthly $2,000 pension for life, among other benefits such as free schooling for their children, free hospital, as well as any amount of land. How could we afford all this? Government simply ordered the Reserve Bank to print the money. Sales tax was increased from 15% to 17.5%, tax on electricity was increased, and a further 20 cents was added to the price of fuel per litre. The rest, as they say, is history. Inflation was the highest in the world, the dollar was abandoned, and the economy collapsed. The question needs to be asked, why did the freedom fighters actually go to war? They fought for equality, for the right to vote, for the right to schooling, healthcare, and freedom to live as an equal citizen wherever they wanted in the country of their birth. They fought so that their children and grandchildren could live in freedom. Being a freedom fighter is a selfless act, a calling, a feeling in your heart. Nowhere was it done for a payout or a pension or to rape and pillage the economy of the country that you fought to free. It is not done to enslave the whole country to your every demand. Yes, obviously we must respect what they have done. We need to help them where we can. But we cannot destroy our country for their demands. To the true war veterans, the ones who served their country without asking for a reward, it is time to stand up. Don't allow these Hitlers, as they were, to lead you when you know very well that they weren't even in the war and they're just a bunch of opportunists. If the real war veterans don't stand up now and bring order to this, then they risk the population, which is now mostly made up of born-free individuals who don't even remember the war, to overlook them altogether. May the real war veterans please stand up. That brings an end to another episode of Brett and Vet. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what I say, you enjoy how I say it, please feel free to have a look at our Facebook page, Brett and Vet, as well as our YouTube channel. And I would just like to thank a supporter who, as you know, the other one that we did was my own handwriting. He actually made this one up for us. So we'd like to thank him very much. Cannot mention his name, but Comrade Maitabas, thank you very much. Thank you.